Greetings, fencers. So I've been asked a couple times why we still use synthetics, and I thought this would be a good reason to go through sparring intensities and gear levels. Now the main theme of this video that I want you to keep in mind is limiting one thing so you can practice something else fully. So let's start off with this ladder, almost from the top. Full speed sparring with steel.
It's been a really long time since I've full speed sparred. Don't kill me, please.
It's what most people want to do and probably what most people think of as sparring. It is great and it is completely important, and you should be doing it if you're serious about trying to get your techniques usable. But a trend I saw from MMA clubs, and Axel and Anders actually mentioned it in their podcast, is that full speed sparring is actually the worst for training and improvement. For two reasons. One, you're more likely to get injured and have to stop practicing in order to heal. And two, when you're going at the fastest speed and have a fear of the sword, you're less likely to try new things, as well as you're less able to, because you're going so fast that you're only using muscle memory, and it's very difficult to rewrite that in the moment. So you're using the same techniques over and over. So this is when you want to use a slower intensity, so that way you're not scared to get hit and try new things. And it's slow enough that you can consciously decide to do something. This is probably going to be your best self-improvement sparring, writing new muscle memory and then testing in full speed if it's stuck. You're limiting speed and danger so you can actually practice technique and options. This is a lot of places' default intensity. Here Ed receives a thrust, but is still laughing. It should be fun for everyone. And this is where synthetics come into play. Synthetics are great for keeping full speed and full impact while reducing chance of injury. Steel swords find every little gap in your protection, along the wrist, fingers, thumb, mask, shoulder bone, collarbone, elbow. I've taken hits in these places that have grounded my sparring for weeks at a time. Some of these spots are impossible to difficult to take serious injuries with a synthetic sword, so by supplementing some full speed steel with synthetic, we decrease the amount of time we're in the high chance of injury zone. Synthetics are also often within historical weights, but are usually lighter so you can go longer, and they're cheaper, dependable, and other benefits in that regard. You can still get injured with a synthetic though, they can hit quite hard. Then we have levels where we start dropping gear. HEMA gear can be heavy and restrictive when we're wanting to practice blossfechten or unarmored combat. Lots of crossed arm positions become rarely used and you get tired faster, and having stuff on your legs can mentally affect your stepping. So we use different gear amounts and have specific targets and specific speeds. I don't have a lot of footage of it, so here's some others. You're limiting speed and targets in order to practice maneuverability, and with steel it also brings back fear to the equation because you don't want to get hit. It can be done with synthetic as well to be a bit nicer on skin with slices, etc. Then, in order to keep that mobility but increase speed and intensity, we lower the danger level and use safer swords, such as Dusak and Single Stick. You get that intensity and intent back, but keep the mobility. You can also find stick fighting tournaments and groups, and some will have very little protective gear. Then we can actually increase the mobility even more by decreasing the danger. There are some good brands of foam swords like Go Now that have good balance. They allow us to be completely free and spar completely full speed apart from no thrusts except when in control. I've been hit in the head, getting punched with boxing gloves hurt more, but in general using masks and gloves is a good idea, then there's no worry. And at the bottom of the ladder we have slow play or slow sparring, generally with no gear, and you take speed out of the equation in order to purely practice technique. It is a great first rung in the ladder after drilling to put a technique in an unscripted environment. And the last is going all the way up the ladder, tournaments. Tournaments are there for a purpose. There are a bunch of reasons, but I'll highlight these sparring reasons. You get to practice your planning and analytical side. You have a bunch of people you've never met and have to try and figure them out in 10 seconds. And you get to do it a bunch of times. And then obviously you get to see how you perform under duress and against someone who wants to win. Also to see if your structure and techniques hold up. At the moment, it's the closest way to put the stress without really dueling, but it doesn't simulate dueling. It is there for a training purpose. And maybe you're looking at some of these and thinking some are more real than others, but remember, these all have artifacts. These all have stuff that would work differently than a real sword. A really simple example is how it changes techniques. Running off is very difficult with sharps. They stick and then it's easier to grab. But with the blunt side, they just fall down. That's why many manuscripts quote running off with the flat. And there's tons more with how swords work to how people might act. Yes, steel is the closest thing and the most important, but is this how I move? Or is this how I move? They all train specific things and are important. And this same logic can be applied with other elements. Cut-only sparring, thrust-only sparring. I've done sparring where no matter what, I have to countercut, parry 3 times before you can cut, guards, targets, cuts, continuous fencing, multiple opponent fencing. Limit elements so you can practice another element fully. And that's also why all my steel swords are different. We have really flexible ones, stiff ones, long, short, shield, no shield, point of balance. Flexible blades do not work like stiff ones. Shilts change binds. None of them are good or bad, they simply allow you to train different things, so you're not surprised or unprepared in a different context. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, keep studying, keep practicing.
That was the... Oh no! Oh man. Handle. Huge gash.